We have some more breaking news for you now. US President Donald Trump has announced new tariffs on Iran trade partners. The 25% tariff on goods will be imposed on all countries doing business with Iran. So it appears to target China, who is the largest importer of Iranian oil. And in a post on Truth Social, President Trump says, effective immediately, any country doing business with the Islamic Republic of Iran will pay a tariff of 25% on any and all business being done with the United States of America. Well, for more, joining us live is political scientist specialising in Middle Eastern politics, Kylie Moore-Gilbert. Kylie, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. This announcement just coming through that Trump has announced the new tariffs on Iran trade partners. So what's your initial reaction on this?
Look, most of the oil trade that's taking place between Iran and countries like China is on the black market anyway. So this is sort of undocumented oil tankers getting, diverted through to China, perhaps under the flag of another country. So I doubt that formal tariffs on these countries' trade with the US is going to have much impact at all, really. It seems like a rather symbolic move more than anything else.
And Kylie, the US, as we know, it's not ruling out a military intervention into Iran. Hundreds of people have reportedly been killed during the anti-government protests. I noticed on your social media feeds you've been, describing a lot of what has been going on. What are you hearing from your sources?
Well, I don't have any sources or any friends within Iran who've been able to get information out since this 4-day now internet and communications blackout began. I've seen clips on social media of people using Starlink to get information and imagery out before it's cut, because the military is using jamming devices inside Iran to even prevent access to Starlink. So it's really difficult to know exactly what's happening in Iran. Most people are estimating the casualties to be well into the thousands at this point, and there's been some really, really horrific documentation that has made it out of, hundreds of bodies piled up in morgues and on streets, following, live fire being used on peaceful protesters. So it's really quite shocking, and I think we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg at this point.
And what do you anticipate if the US and Israel go ahead with any military strikes?
I'm not sure whether they will, and I'm also not sure whether that's a good idea. For one, where are they going to strike, and is it actually going to backfire and embolden further that very small but heavily armed group of regime supporters who are currently putting down the protests? It will become a real rallying moment for them. The regime is clearly in existential crisis. I think this is terminal for them, and it's a matter of when, not if, they fall, and in what manner they fall, and how many innocent protesters and innocent citizens of Iran they take down with them. It's not clear that airstrikes will necessarily help, given the widespread nature of these protests and of the crackdown. I mean, it's happening in every city and every major town across the country. Is Trump really going to bomb security forces in every part of the country? It could easily make things worse. I think what is needed is support for the Iranian people, particularly around this communication blackout. Bolster Starlink further. Cyber attacks and hacking attempts to get the internet back online would be really, really useful right now. Just publicizing what's happening, trying to shine a light on, the people in Iran fighting in the streets for their lives right now, for the cause of freedom and the ability not to live under this tyrannical dictatorship. We need to shine a light on that, but I'm skeptical as to whether military intervention will have the desired effect.
And we're hearing a lot of commentators, drawing parallels to the protests in 1979, other protests throughout other years as well. How do you compare these recent protests that we have seen escalate over the past few weeks?
There's definitely a revolutionary fervour in the air, similar to 1979, and we're seeing that broad coalition of different social groups unite in their loathing for the regime, as we saw in 79 as well. This was sparked by bazaar traders, currency traders, not typical revolutionaries, not the people who were in the streets in 2022, for example, protesting the death of Mahsa Amini in morality police custody. So there's a broader coalition of people who have just had enough. They're desperate, they're fed up, they can't put food on the table, and they want this regime gone. I think also the gravity of the response, the extent of the response by security forces is also unprecedented. In previous rounds of protest, we've seen more crowd control tactics used initially, particularly, tear gas, water cannon, rubber bullets. They seem to have escalated straight to, military grade weapons and shooting people with live fire very, very quickly. And as a result, the number of casualties and the number of injured has just skyrocketed. It's, being described as a bloodbath or a massacre or similar to a war zone, in some parts of the country. So the response of the authorities is much more severe. And I think it's because they realise they're fighting for their survival as well.
Dr. Kylie Moore Gilbert, really appreciate your time and analysis. Thank you.